welcome to Startup Grind 2014. Tonight we're going to be chatting to Anne Murray. Now Anne comes from San Francisco. It's her first time here. Anne, first time? Yeah. And she's here on a wedding, so that's pretty awesome. And while she was down here, she contacted me and said, hey, I've got this awesome concept. I do PR completely different. So I got hold of the PR guys, quite a few here from PRNet and those communities. And we're going to be talking about what she does different across the pond. Okay, so Anne started out, got her own business, does things differently. She's been featured in Gawker, she writes for Gawker, she writes for Huffington Post, she writes for Hello Giggles, some really big names. She is also one of the Verizon startup, she won an award for entrepreneur startup from Verizon, you know, it's like MTN, Vodacom, those guys. And so it's quite awesome to have her here tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, can we stand, give a massive round of applause to Anne Murray.
Thank you guys.
Welcome, welcome. Here we go. You can? It's right there. Cool. Can everybody at the back hear me? Can you hear me all right at the back there? Should I use the microphone? A bit louder. Okay, I think I'll use the microphone because as one talks, one does become softer. Guys, I'd like to thank PayFast for sponsoring PayFast, Who Themes, and then also Atlantic Imbizo for sponsoring this event. I think it's quite an awesome place to get together, and they've sponsored us very loyally over the last while. And if there's anybody else that wants to get their name out there, we've got on the website, on the international website, we've got massive big events coming up, which will be sponsored and chatted about in Wall Street Journal, some international exposure. Please contact me. Cool. Right, welcome. I'm gonna pick up the microphone, and I have to shout to everybody. Okay, can you guys hear at the back now? Yeah, perfect. Okay, guys, please hashtag Anne Grinds on the top there. Also, you can please go over to sly.do/startcpt, and you're able to answer the questions or ask questions and vote the questions up and down that you see on the board over there. And there is a Twitter competition. The person with the best Twitter comment with the hashtag Anne Grinds gets to win some really awesome prizes from Anne. And they're in dollars, and right now that's really cool.
That is so cool.
Okay.
Literally dollars. I will give you dollars. Not kidding.
Okay, cool. And right, welcome to Startup Grind. And we're going to start off from the very beginning. Where were you born? And take it from where you were born, where your first school, how it was to live where you did live and started out, and take us through your childhood.
I will. So from the beginning, I was actually born in Villa del Mar in Chile, in South America. I immigrated to the U.S. when I was 9 years old with my parents. We landed in Los Angeles. I went to school there. I learned English. I had to learn English very quickly. It was a difficult transition. I went to college at UCLA and then USC in public relations. I also did a one-year PhD. I thought I was going to go for my PhD in clinical psychology and research psychology. Turns out that wasn't what I wanted to do, so I switched over to public relations. And then I sort of fell into PR. In 2006, I ended up doing a campaign for MySpace, and I was involved in one of the first viral sort of musical sensations in the US. And back then I didn't know what PR was. I was really young. I just thought, this is fun. I just made something go viral. This is awesome. This is very cool. For MySpace, I love being involved with MySpace back in the olden days of social media. Back when it was called new media. Yeah, I just dated myself. I'm not that old, I swear. And I discovered PR. Then I ended up going to USC. I got my master's in public relations. I sort of professionalized my experience, my background. And I ended up working for several PR agencies in Los Angeles. Mainly, it was sort of online PR, social media with traditional PR. So I've never really come from a traditional PR background, which is why I think I have sort of a new perspective when it comes to public relations, because I started my career with online PR, viral marketing, online publicity and MySpace. After working for a few years for PR agencies in LA, I decided to go on my own. I ended up doing campaigns for 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, Unilever, Warner Brothers, Lionsgate, and in 2011, I heard about a program called Startup Chile, which is a tech accelerator in South America. They give you, it's actually still around in case any of you guys are interested. They give you $40K to build your own startup in Chile. You just have to move out there for 6 months.
And can anybody apply from any country?
Yeah, from any country. We started out with just 100 people. I was part of round one in Startup Chile. I had my own startup. It was a CRM for public relations agencies. And that didn't go anywhere. I totally failed. I completely failed. But we all kind of need to fail.
Absolutely. Learning road.
Exactly. And but I sort of, because of that, I ended up doing PR for startups. So I made the switch from doing PR for entertainment and consumer brands to startups. And I found, I ended up partnering up with a media expert. His name is Ben Kaplan. And we partnered up on a campaign and ended up, by accident, we basically blew up a tiny mobile app called Kloof. And this is actually one of my, my really my favorite case studies to talk about. It was a mobile app. It's sort of a mix of Instagram and Facebook for pets. So if you love your pets, you want to get pictures of them, this was sort of like the perfect mobile app to, get pictures of your pet. We brought them, after only doing 2 months of PR for them, and only PR, we were the only marketing strategy. We took them from 0 to 20,000 users in 2 months, without them doing any other type of sort of marketing, SEO, whatever, traditional, whatever marketing startups go for. And that was because what we did is we sort of incorporated startup theory, lean methodology, A/B testing, statistical methods, surveys with a really strong public relations background, with social media, with viral marketing. And we were able to sort of get these results that no other PR agency was able to get, and we were on to something big. We knew we were on to something big, and that's what sort of, from then on, we've sort of, we ended up in San Francisco, where we set up shop in Soma, which is downtown San Francisco. Now we're doing PR for about 15 different startups, including Strikingly, Prezi, Locality, a bunch of sort of up-and-coming startups, about 5 different Y Combinator startups. And so yeah, I kind of stumbled upon
Did you get into the Y Combinator because of what you were doing, and they approached you and said, hey, please do help us with the campaigns? Exactly.
So once you get one Y Combinator company, if you do a great job, and if they love working with you, they love your results. It's really all about results. If they love your results, they'll recommend you to other Y Combinator companies. If you can get into Y Combinator or into any of the other, like Techstars too, it's a major sort of, into any of the major tech networks. If you get into one of the startups that are in these networks, you can get into all of them through word of mouth. Just do a really great job.
Obviously, it does help if the startup is actually going to become successful.
Yeah.
What happened to those that didn't become successful? Did you find a lot of PR coming from those campaigns as well?
Yeah, well, a lot of them pivoted. A lot of them, I wouldn't say they sort of failed, but they all sort of pivot and they create other businesses. So Kloof, right now, Kloof and our very first campaign, they don't look like what they did a few years ago. They ended up at Techstars Boston. They got accepted into Y Combinator. They were named the top startup in New York by Time Magazine. But they sort of switched. Now they're a completely different business model. So even though they might sort of not be doing the same thing that they were doing at first. They pivoted and they changed their business model towards something that's, you know, that is
so
ultimately
creating money and
exactly.
If they stayed the way they were, would they? Do you think they would have still been a success today?
Yeah, because a lot of times these guys, they've got amazing ideas and amazing concepts, but it just doesn't make money. And they can get 100,000 users, but if you don't monetize your users, you're sort of just stuck. You know, you're stuck. What's going to happen? Are you going to keep just taking money from VCs? Are you going to, you know, do Series A, Series B? But what happens after Series B? You have to monetize your users.
Okay. Take us back to Prezi, working with those guys. They're one of my favorite. I don't know, has anybody ever used Prezi? It basically allows you to, quite a few hands. They allow you to create quite awesome slides, infinitely zooming in and out, and you can do great presentations with it. Tell us, working with those guys, what is it like?
It was great. I mean, it's a huge. What's really great about them is that they're a huge company, but they have a startup mentality. So they make sure to keep, you know, creativity in their offices, right down from the design of their amazing office. All of their headquarters they look and they feel like little tiny cool like startup hubs. And you know, they have brainstorms like a startup does. They have cool lunches like a startup does. They have beer runs like startups. So I feel like what I really love about Prezi is that they have and they will always try to keep the startup mentality no matter how big they're getting. And they're getting really, really big. So.
Okay, on your PR side, working with all these different campaigns and stuff, how do you actually manage the workflow for yourself in your actual PR company?
Yeah. So this is where you know, like a new way of doing PR comes into. My co-founder, who was also in Startup Chile, he's a developer. He's a coder. He went to Harvard. You know, he sort of took like the traditional. He's like the traditional, you know, the traditional developer guy. He's created systems and tools himself to make everything more efficient, from the way that we can communicate with our clients, from the way we communicate with our staff, from the way that we do outreach. Everything's 100% more efficient, in the same way that a startup might do everything more efficiently than a traditional like business or organization. So everything is automated as much as possible. And when it's not automated, we try to automate it as much as possible. So, and we use a lot of apps. We use a lot of tools, CRM tools. We try to sort of look for the latest and the greatest in terms of like platforms to make everything easier. Because the less that you're spending in the process of doing PR, the more you're spending in getting hits for your clients.
Okay, now you said that you do PR differently. Can you take us through an actual campaign that you would do traditionally, how you do traditionally, and then break it down into how you would actually change it, make it different, make it something unique?
Sure. So one of the main ways that we're different, and this is actually one I noticed. This is one of the questions too that was up there. A trend PR is gravitating towards, instead of doing a pitch, you're creating a story idea. So creating instead of pitching the product, we pitch a story idea or a trend, or an emerging trend, or an interesting story to the journalist. So we do all the work for them, and that's one way that we sort of have been able to differentiate ourselves from a lot of the traditional PR agencies in the U.S. We create a great story idea, we write it out in a way that's really concise and that really resonates with the journalist. We do all the research, we add all the data, and we send them this sort of perfected pitch. That's one way, using story ideas. Number two, we do a lot of A/B testing with our pitches. So there's a few things that are really important in terms of what you send out to journalists. And one is, for example, the subject line. The subject line is incredibly important in getting the conversions, right, and getting them to open up your actual email. So we A/B test subject lines. When a subject line isn't working, we send it out to, like, I don't know, 400 reporters, 400 business reporters. If one subject line is not working, we shift, and we test sort of like different subject lines, what's going to work better, what's not working. We drop what's not working. We go wide with what worked really, really well. That's number 2. And number 3, we use surveys a lot. We use a lot of survey data, because you're creating content for the reporters. You're creating content for, if you're a startup, that's your way of creating content for the people that you want to write about you. If you're a PR person, you're creating content for the reporters that you want to cover your actual clients. So those are, I guess, the 3 main ways that I think PR is changing, and that we're sort of doing PR in a new way.
Okay, we're going to take one of the questions on the board that has slightly changed. The first question is, how can a startup leverage the Well-Designed Capital 2014 using PR to create brand awareness? Okay, so you see that highlighted word there. Basically, Cape Town is going to be the 2014 Well-Designed Capital, which is quite exciting stuff. Now, as a PR agency, how would you, using your different techniques, how would you get that word out there? How would you be able to leverage it that the whole world gets actually comes to Cape Town for that?
So, I mean, I guess my question would be, I mean, would this be for an actual startup, or for a startup, or for the actual?
For the actual PR agency.
Okay. Let me give that some. I'm going to give that some thought, and then I'll circle back. Yeah.
Okay,
I need to get my creative juices flowing.
Perfect. Okay. Now, okay. Well, there we go. Next one highlighted. How do you approach your social media strategy?
Well, see, this is a really important topic for me, because I started, in 2007, I started doing what is now social media and online marketing, and I, transitioned into doing public relations. The way that I look at social media now, I wasn't able to. It would have been hard for me to only do social media. I had to transition into public relations. I think that the way that we incorporate it now is, it's just seamless. Social media and PR have to be seamless. You can't have completely separate teams doing different things. You have to either be a social media PR specialist, or you have to be a PR specialist working very, very closely with your social media person. It's got to be very, very seamless.
Okay, coming to South Africa, let's go on something more personal. How are you finding it in Cape Town?
I love it, and I never want to leave. It's amazing, you guys. You guys don't know how lucky you are. It's gorgeous, so yes.
Awesome. Okay.
It's beautiful.
Right, here's another question here. Do you have any thoughts on the book, Trust Me, I'm Lying? Confessions of a Media Manipulator?
I've heard of it. I've heard of it, but I've never really actually read it. But I should read it. But it's true. You can manipulate the media very easily. So those are my thoughts about it.
Awesome. Okay, now when a business approaches you, what is the first thing that you do with that business? Do you sit down as a PR agency that you are? What is it that you do? What is the very first thing, the contact of the actual business?
So we get their goals. Usually a startup has 2 completely different goals. One type of startup is the startup that wants to acquire users, right? So that's usually an early stage, or they just got funding, or they just got into a tech accelerator, or they just got out of a tech accelerator. Those guys have completely different goals, and they need different results than the guys who just need the social proof, right? The guys that just need the Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. The guys that come to you and they're like, I just need Wall Street Journal, CNN, the New York Times. Those are like the second group. These are guys who basically need investors. They need to get in. They need to get in front of important people. They need to get in front of government folks. So it really depends on the type of goals that these guys have. If their goal is user acquisition, we work with them to make sure that that as soon as we start bringing traffic to their landing page, that their landing page is ready to take to capture emails, to convert this traffic that we're going to be bringing them. So we make sure that they're optimized 100% to get this amazing traffic. If they want just the prestige, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, we work with them to figure out like story ideas. We work to figure out what types of stories they want, like what types of stories that they sort of want told. So I guess it depends on like the separate roles.
Okay. Having a startup, the guys obviously have got a website and stuff. What if the entire design has been built, it's been completely designed, and are you coming there and telling them, no, you know what, actually this is not going to work, your landing pages are not working. How do you approach that?
I mean, when that's happened, they're really amenable. They're really sort of, they know that we know what we're talking about because we've been in the business for a few years and we've had these great results. So when we tell them, like, guys, like the traffic that we're bringing, your pipeline's not working, whatever, like you have to do this better. It's easy for them to just sort of say, okay, like help us figure out how to make it better. So it's never really been an issue because once you sort of recommend to them and you let them know that their page is not conducive to users, like it's very easy.
Okay, next question is, how do you as a PR agency actually measure your success?
So I think that also goes back to...
I'll split that into two questions.
Sure.
Reward and the price.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess that also comes back to the different... I mean, for me, honestly, I just want to get my clients into prestige outlets. I think those are my biggest hits. So, the other day we got Jay Sheck, who's the CEO of Locality, also a former Y Combinator startup. Last minute, we booked him on Fox News, talking about small business topics. And stuff like that, I love getting my clients on TV. I love getting my clients on CNN and seeing them getting, dressed up in their like little tuxedos and talking to, Fox News correspondents. Those are my sort of, that's my ROI, I guess. For my clients, it differs. Like I said, there's two separate types of clients. First client wants users. They don't care who, what, or whatever, or what writes about them. The tiniest blog could write about them, but if they bring them traffic, then that's awesome. So for them, they basically, their ROI has a lot to do with user growth. One of the startups that I'm working with now, Artkick, it was a little bit of a tough campaign. It's an app where you can stream like art, like the Mona Lisa on your television. It's a Roku app. They just wanted users. They didn't care where they were. They just wanted users. And we started getting them in prestige outlets at first, and they weren't getting users. And then we started getting them into blogs and tinier sort of outlets, and they ended up growing. I think we got them up to like 2,000 users in 1 week, and now they're growing out anywhere from 50 to like 100 users each day. They're happy. But for others, it's just get us, guys. They literally just come to us. They're like, just get us on like Wall Street Journal. We just want 3 hits: Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CNN. So those are, I guess, 3 separate ROI results. So.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Going back to your personal, guys, can you believe it? She knows Geordie Smith, the surfer. Yes, she does. And she's going off to his wedding. How did that happen? Tell us.
Oh, it's a long story. I know his wife from Hollywood. She was in Hollywood modeling, and we became friends in 2007. And then she met Geordie, and now I'm here. Yeah.
Very fortunate. See, helps to know the right people, right? Okay, so here's another one. What are your top tips for acquiring users?
This is really a favorite topic of mine. I'm really interested in growth hacking. I don't know how big growth hacking has gone here in the industry and the startup ecosystem, but growth hacking is really, it's really hot in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. It's just a way of like hacking your user, acquisition, hacking that pipeline.
Okay, when you say hacking, what do you actually mean by hacking?
Just, finding really, really easy ways and really cheap ways to acquire users.
So not high quality, just mass base of users.
Yeah, just mass. I mean, mass users. I mean, you know, like okay quality. I think that like your landing page is really important. Your story idea is really, really important because your story idea has a lot to do with your brand. And so whatever you get attached to at the beginning of a PR campaign, that's what your brand is going to be attached to. So for Kloof, this pet app, the story that we created around them was the type of dog. We did a survey that basically talked about that said that the type of dog that you owned influenced your dating habits. So if you were a guy, if you were a dude, and if you had a pit bull, the ladies, thought you were probably hot but kind of sketchy, right? What we found for guys was that they thought that if you were a lady and you had a chihuahua, you're probably hot but maybe dumb, right? So that was the story that we created, and we were able to get them on the Today Show, top 3 morning shows in the U.S. The Today Show, Good Morning America, Saturday morning, and from then on, they were known as the doggy dating app. So you have to be really, really careful in terms of like creating your first story. Your first story has to be awesome, and has to be interesting, it has to be able to go viral, and like I said, number 2, your landing page has to be ready to capture people that don't necessarily want to download, immediately, but that might want to download your app or whatever, or sign up a few weeks from now. So your landing page has to be really ready. So story idea and landing page.
Good tips for most web developers out there. Okay, so what is the one mistake everyone makes when it comes to PR strategy, and how do we avoid it?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I actually, I come from both sort of. My background is I was a writer and I'm in PR, so I still get pitched. So I know what works and what doesn't in terms of the pitches that we send out and the pitches that I get. So I guess a big no-no, I think, is just to pitch the product, and just to sort of, because what you're doing by pitching the product, whether it's a client or whether it's your own startup, is you're basically trying to cram down, you're trying to cram a product down a journalist's throat. They might not give a rat's ass about, what amazing thing you're doing. So you have to create a context. You have to create a context around the product, and you have to pitch the context and then the product. The issue with the pitches that I get too is they're just like, hey, and I think you might be interested in this amazing app that does this and that, and I think, why would I be interested in this app? You have to tell me why I will be interested in it. Is there a trend that's going on right now? Are they part of an amazing new revolution, an amazing new phenomenon? Is this like, did they discover some weird cool trend in the American population? So I think a big mistake is pitching the product without the context around it.
Speaking of trends, in the PR sense, having many PR people here, what are the PR trends in San Francisco at the moment?
I think growth hacking is huge. A lot of agencies, I don't know about agencies, but a lot of startups, what I'm seeing is they're hiring PR directors and they're hiring growth hackers, and they're making them work in tandem. Or a lot of times they're hiring growth hackers who have PR experience. So a growth hacker might have SEO experience, online marketing. And that's why you need a person to sort of, to make sure that all those hits are being converted. And that's important for you guys to tell, for the PR people here, it's important for you guys to tell your clients. It's really important when I bring the traffic that you don't just sort of drop them. You have to make sure that you're completely optimized and ready to convert all these people that I'm going to be bringing to you. Because if you're not, these people can't be, they can't be judging you based on the users if their landing page sucks. So that's a nice trend. So growth hacking and public relations working together.
Speaking of teams, do you use a large team yourself? Do you outsource? Do you insource? How do you manage your teams?
Sure. So right now we're a team of 4 in San Francisco. We're hiring fast. We're about to be hiring 3 more people. We have a loft in San Francisco, and we just sort of are getting it ready. You know, setting up the desks and getting it ready for new blood. Right now there's me and Ben, who are the co-founders of PR Hacker, which is what we call our agency, and we have 2 other people that work with us. We don't really outsource because we found that these people need to be in the office with us, and the people that are pitching need to know how we're pitching, how to create story ideas, how to A/B test. It's sort of a very, very specific way of doing PR, and it has to be taught, and you have to be really careful in dealing with media. So right now, yeah, it's all internal. Maybe in the future we might sort of start outsourcing.
Speaking of A/B, here's a nice question here. In your opinion, what is the best tool to run A/B splits tests, both web and email?
Well, we do A/B testing with MailChimp. MailChimp is fantastic. You know, we use MailChimp primarily when we do our media outreach, and it's personalized. And you know, you can measure conversions. You can A/B test the subject line. You can A/B test the first line of your email. So I think 100% MailChimp. I also use for landing. Sometimes we do landing pages for our clients. Not that much. We use Unbounce. Unbounce is a really, really great internal system for A/B testing.
Speaking of MailChimp, one thing that Google has obviously done is they've now categorized it. I find it very useful, having all my main email in my inbox and all my MailChimp and my forums in the different categories. But the thing is, I check my other categories. A lot of people don't know about this feature and they don't use it. So do you find that a lot of your readers on your MailChimp campaigns are actually dropping off, or they don't find out about the information, and then how do you overcome that?
So, like, I guess people not receiving my emails?
Yeah,
or?
basically. You send it out to them, but they don't receive it.
Yeah.
They don't read it.
Well, you have to just know the tricks. You know, you have to, when you're using MailChimp, for example, and we use MailChimp and Gmail in conjunction. You have to know that, for example, you can't add links. You have to have your email has to be short. You sort of just like have to know the tricks of the trade when not, in terms of like how not to get marked as spam. But even having said that, that's a big issue. And I mean, I feel like a lot of my time is spent after a big pitch goes out. A lot of my time is spent just going into my spam folder and checking like what bounced back, and who's going into my spam folder and why, and sort of figuring out too why this particular email, why this particular pitch is in spam, and then making it better.
Cool. What stage of a startup's life cycle should you start paying attention to PR?
Actually, this is an unpopular opinion, but I think from the very beginning. I mean, you know, we're primarily working with startups that are, branding up, going into like Series C. But we started out working with early stage startups, and that's a great way of getting early buzz. I mean, having said that, don't spend too much. Don't spend a lot of money in PR initially. But if you can hack a PR campaign on your own, or hire a good person to help you do PR initially, I think it's really important, because if you get the users, that's all that matters, really. Again, Kloof, they were able to see all this amazing success because they went from 0 to 20,000 fans. Yeah, from 0 to 20,000 users in a few months. And they were a baby startup. Had they not had that, they would have been dead in the water. And they were great. It was a great app, but there were a million other apps just like them. But because they had this amazing growth, they were able to get Techstars and investors and whatever, and they were able to get all this amazing support. So I think it's really important for early stage startups.
Okay, running your own business on a more business side, because there's a lot of discussion about bootstrapping or getting funding. What are your opinions about that? Should you bootstrap, or should you be funding from a big company, or what do you think?
I mean, if you're a startup, from what I've seen from the startups that we've worked with, I mean, it's hard to really say. A lot of guys don't like to get outside funding because they lose a lot of control. So if you feel like you want funding, and if you feel like you want an accelerator, and if you feel like you want a VC or an angel, you need to be aggressive and assertive, and you need to know the deal. You need to know what's up. Like, you need to understand everything, and you need to know that you need to make sure that you remain in control of your startup and of your decisions. I feel like the most successful CEOs that we've worked with have been guys who have gotten amazing, multi-million-dollar deals with VCs, but that have been aggressive enough to retain control and to retain the last word. So to be able to make the ultimate decision for their startups. So.
Okay, this question is a bit of a tricky one, but how are you as a PR agency startup? You've obviously done many campaigns, but have you ever done one, or how many have you done that hasn't actually been successful? Obviously it can't not be, maybe not your fault or whatever the fault is, but the ones that have actually failed, and you're the PR agency for this, and you're going, oh man, where do you draw inspiration? What makes you keep on going?
I mean, I feel like we've only had one failure. I hate to say this, but we've only had one fail. We've only had one campaign fail, miserably, and it was horrific. And I think just that experience was so horrific that we were like, no, we're never gonna, we never want this again. No, I think it's just fun. It's fun helping launch companies and launch products, and just like helping these guys who have these amazing ideas, who know how to create these great tools, but who don't know how to market. It's so exciting. For example, there's one app that I'm working with called Agent, and they're doing this amazing thing. They're taking on texting and driving. So their app, if you have it on your phone, it uses Bluetooth to analyze when you're driving in your car, and it turns off your text. And whenever people text you, the Agent app, basically sends them a message that says, "I'm driving, I'll get back to you later." And that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And a lot of these are sort of game changers, right? Like changing the culture of a society, And I just think that helping people like that have brilliant ideas, but that don't know how to market and don't know how to bring people to their apps, I think that's super exciting, and I think that's what keeps us going.
For sure. So. Okay, on that thread, what was your biggest mistake, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest mistake. Not being creative enough. I think the one campaign that was a really big failure was because we didn't get creative enough. We created one story idea, and we thought it would be great, and it just wasn't interesting enough. You have to get interesting, and you have to find a really, really unique and cool angle and a cool story. And we were just cocky. We were like, oh, let's just keep trying. Like this is going to do amazing, but it didn't do amazing. And we should have just kept going. We should have gotten more creative. I think since then we figured out that you have to get the more creative and the more unique your story ideas are, the more the more interest that you're going to get from reporters. So.
Any books we can read or blogs we can follow to get creating cutting-edge PR and growth hacking insights?
I don't really read PR blogs because it's a lot of traditional talk. They talk a lot about traditional stuff. They're not really in tune with the times. So I like to read startup marketing blogs, like Lean. Any of the Lean blogs are awesome. So any of Steve Blank's stuff. Steve Blank is a brilliant man, and not only in terms of launching a product, but creating your sort of business model, but marketing too. So definitely, I would say definitely start with Steve Blank. And growth hacking, there's a ton of growth hacking experts on the web. It's just really a matter of Googling them and figuring out who you trust, because there's a lot of guys who make a lot of sense. There's other guys that are just sort of blowing smoke up, So you have to just figure out what growth hacker to trust. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that question's done. So it would be Next question is, should you start PR and social media promotion before you launch? Oh, interesting.
Yes, but you need to be able to capture users. You need to be able to capture and convert quickly. You know, you can't just do a PR campaign and bring in 3,000 users in a week and then leave them hanging. You have to create a funnel. You have to create your newsletters, keep them interested, create a blog. So create a marketing, yes, but the caveat is you have to create a marketing funnel to keep them engaged.
What are the most common PR mistakes you see a young company make?
Oh, I love this question. So going out to like 4 reporters, that's it. Like, don't go out to 4 reporters. Go out to 1,000 reporters or like 500. Don't say we only want to get covered in the Wall Street Journal. We only want to get covered in Forbes and Entrepreneur. So we're only going to go to those 3. No. PR is really about it. It's a snowball effect. And if you want to get covered by the Wall Street Journal or Forbes or whatever, you have to start with everybody. You have to, cast like a wide sort of blanket, and you have to build that buzz so that a bunch of blogs are writing about you, and then Fast Company writes about you, and then Forbes is like, oh, these guys are awesome. I'm gonna look into them. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is being married to your brand too much and your brand messaging. One problem that I keep sort of having with some startups is, especially the ones that are very well funded, is that they're very married to their tone and their brand and their messaging, and they want to control everything that we go out with, and that gets in the way of getting press. So you have to at some point you have to relinquish control a little bit, and you have to let your PR people or your marketing people do their thing, basically. Like, you have to let them do what they do best and not get in their way. And even if what they're going out with might not be aligned with your messaging or your brand strategy, if they can get you the Wall Street Journal, why should that matter? So you work with your messaging and your branding, whatever, when you have to deal with it. And I think those are the 2 top mistakes. I could probably think of about 20 more. But.
Right. What are your top tips for acquiring users?
I think just having a great story, a fun, quirky story, like Palouf, doggies and dating. Chihuahuas make you look slutty, and you might be hot, but you might be slutty. If you have a pit bull, you might be sketchy. That's a cool, interesting story. So have a hook. So create a hook to bring in the morning shows and top consumer outlets. Don't only focus on tech blogs and tech outlets. That's actually a big one too. Users, you're not going to get users from TechCrunch. You're not going to get your client from users from getting them on like TechCrunch and Fast Company. You're going to get your client users, getting them on your local morning show or the Huffington Post. And of course, having a really, really great landing page too. Yeah.
Awesome. How do you that's already how do you measure success? We kind of answered that one already, but okay. Is traditional PR, but that one just died. Would PR trends necessarily move from the US to SA, or does SA create their own trends, obviously, in your opinion?
I think it's bilateral. I think trends could start in the US and trends could start here, and we could sort of, I can see trends, some marketing trends are started in other countries, and sort of they make their way into the US and vice versa. So
pivoting on that idea, have you ever done have you ever done a campaign for a company which has to bridge both across first world and third world? And have you ever done one that is just for the first world and just for the third world? And what have your experiences been for those 3 different campaigns?
Sure. So yeah, I've done Latin American startup campaigns because I'm from Chile myself, so I have a big network of startups in Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. And most of those startups, they come to us because they want to reach the U.S. They want to get the U.S. mom bloggers, or the American families. So we've done a lot of those where we're sort of trying to enter the American market using PR. And I've never done an American startup that wants to bridge over though. So yeah.
Cool. And I think that's going to be the last question. Let's see what it's going to be. What are the basics that bootstrap startups should include in their press packs if they put them together themselves?
This is a really good question. I think you just make it really, really easy. Like, don't go with what's been what you see has been done traditionally. I think just make it really, really easy for reporters. Put yourself in the reporter's shoes. If you were a reporter and if you were writing a story, what would you want right now? So screenshots, logos, a blurb of exactly what you do, and a tagline too. A tagline is really important. You have an app, your client has a product. What exactly does it do? So so many sort of CEOs, they gloss over what exactly they do and they just throw in a lot of buzzwords. So exactly what you do, bios of your your co-founders, any previous press, and that's pretty much it. Just make it really, really easy, make it really, really concise, and make sure that your writing is really, really, really good. If you have to hire a copywriter, then do it. It's really, really important to have really great writing.
Okay, I'm going to ask the last one, yeah? You've enjoyed Cape Town so far. What has been your best experience here, and what are you doing for the next couple of days?
Oh my gosh. Well, I really love this area. Like I've only been here for like 2 days, so this is a really nice area. I have to figure out what I'm going to do next. I think I'm going to do probably the traditional touristy stuff, like the safari and whatever. So I have to figure out, I don't like to plan, so I'm going to have to figure out very last minute.
Awesome, cool. Thank you very much for joining us. Cool. Now we can do the Twitter, right. Paul, are you ready? Come forward here, my man.
Sorry, I've just been engrossed. I'm on the sponge. Soaking up all this information.
Have you got a winner there?
I have a winner, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm happy to say that the tweet isn't going to create a PR storm or anything like that, thank goodness. But I think a lot of the time it is the elephant in the room, and the tweet that for me that really stood out is we need more people telling South Africans failing is no big deal, and that's from Vanessa Clark. And I think that's quite a key thing, and I think that's one of the key purposes of Startup Growing, is for us to all share each other's stories, and that failing is actually no big deal. Just get up and get on with it, really. So, Vanessa, thanks for this.
Vanessa, where's Vanessa? Vanessa, stand up there. Can we get a photo of you, please? Okay, there we go. Vanessa, come forward, actually. Can you make it on there? There we go. All right, God, okay.
My Twitter picture.
That's fine. Okay, Vanessa, well done. You get to win something really awesome from PR, so please connect with them, and then also get to come to the next Startup Grind event for free. There we go.
Thank you so much.
There we go. Okay, right. Guys, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. And also, we're going to thank our sponsors, PayFast, that's Payment Gateway, and we've also got Woo Themes, which does awesome online themes, and they've got a free online shop. And then thank you for this venue, Atlantic Imbizo, here in the V&A Waterfront, which is a really awesome place to come and visit for you international people. And then our next event is on the 20th of February. Okay, so please put that in. The tickets are already on sale. And we're going to be speaking to the MD of PayFast. So we're going to be finding out about e-commerce, about how he actually started the company, which is very similar to PayPal, and how he challenges in the actual South African market. Cool. Guys, there are still some eats at the back there, I think. Very few. And we also have to thank Paul here for the tweet challenge. He's got why market it?
That's terrible.
You told me yesterday.
Why
Come tell us. Why status? Tell us.
Yeah, so it's Why Satisfy, which is a social media customer-centric energy agency. The key focus of the agency is to sort of tailor the African market and provide moderation services in multilingual languages.
Brilliant. And then Didre Lutzmore has got mzanzistore.com or .co.za? .com. Guys, go check it out. There we go.
Thanks, Julian.
There we go, there we go. Thank you guys, thank you very much for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
And big hand for Anne.
Keeping the rides is like, I couldn't believe it was only obviously, I had nothing to do with it. And I was like, amazing. It must be the same one. Obviously, is an indication that people are like,
You're bringing them that's what giving you, but a new direction.